journey into understanding what is in the administrative menu in terms of all of the functionality over there, and to talk about what is the security administrator role within special programs. With every database, there is a super user account that is known as the admin account, and it is called the security administrator account, okay? That security administrator account allows the user who has access to log in as that user to be able to make adjustments to configuration settings, set messaging options, monitor integration, change the global profile, and of course, manage keyword tables, add values to keyword tables, do a deeper dive into reviewing profiles and document templates. So all of those things that I just mentioned, we are going to be taking a journey to review all of those throughout the rest of the day. In this session, we are going to focus on what is in the administration configuration area. Now, a couple things, I know people have been asking about this. There is an admin account and there is a password. It is the security administrator account, as I just said, that allows you to access all of those different things. As you can imagine, we need to be careful about who we provide that to at each district. And we certainly want to make sure that it's going to the correct person and that they know what to do with it, right? So in terms of providing that admin account, one of the reasons that we're having these sessions in the next 3 weeks is to provide you with this information, to provide you with this training. And once you've been in the training, in turn, to make sure that you have your admin account credentials. So we're working on that process, streamlining that process internally to get that information to you. We'll have some additional information on that by the end of the day. A couple things, just so you know, the Alabama model was released last night. They are still doing some additional pushing out of security. So there are scripts that are continuing to run throughout the day. So for some of you, if you've signed in and you said, I don't see anything, they're still running scripts, and those scripts are running in the background. They're pushing out some new default security settings over into those security groups. So just be patient. It takes a long time to get 160 districts updated when they're pushing out security tables. So be patient there. As I said, I'll have some more information about the processes for the admin account by the end of the day. So we'll keep you posted. All right, as I said, what are the responsibilities? To be able to access the configuration settings, to be able to know what those security properties and privileges mean, and to be able to make refinements and modifications to your district if necessary. We're going to talk after this session. We're going to move into talking further about document template security, properties and behaviors. It's also important to note that Alabama has been deployed with what is called a default configuration. And by that, I mean, we've talked about the Alabama model. The Alabama model, think of it kind of as a template. It is your Alabama special programs template. And when we deploy, you all get a copy of that template. And what that means is that you're all the same. And because you're all the same, we can do some default configurations when we roll it out, so that it takes so it takes the onus off of you having to go in and do a lot of configuration management on an individual basis. So as we go through the rest of the sessions today, the majority of the message that I'm going to be delivering is not that you need to go do this. It is to understand what has been done for you. And then in the sessions that are coming up in the next 2.5 months, if there are areas where you think that you're going to want to make some modifications, where you're going to want to do some deep dives into some of these subject areas, that's when we'll get into the real focused working sessions of really kind of breaking some of these areas apart. So right now, as I said, these are the default configuration settings. It's been deployed with defaults, best practices, things that we've learned through the pilots, things that we learned through the business process review workflows that have happened over a year ago to optimize special programs for Alabama. And that includes the configuration settings, the discussions with discussions that we have about integration too. All right, so to get us started, I am going to actually go into the software. Now, your software, special program software, resides on a hosted server for Alabama. Okay. It is a hosted server with services, with PowerSchool. And each district in Alabama has their own database within that hosted environment. And every database is differentiated by a specific school district ID, okay? So if I am logging in via a URL, I am logging into that server and I am logging in to a particular database. Okay. And so the information that is pertinent to your admin account is also the URL where the database is hosted. So as I said, stay tuned. I just kind of want to explain what that URL is. That URL is the same for all districts. The differentiation is the actual school district ID for each of your databases. There is one account, as I said, that is called the admin account. And when the admin account is provided to the appropriate designated contact at each district, they will be provided a temporary password. Okay, and that it's different for everybody. So don't think that it's one temporary password for all districts. It's not. It is different for each one of you. Kind of like, think about all web applications, you're going to get a default password. And when you log in with that default password, the first time, you would change it. And there are instructions that are in the slide deck. There are instructions that I'll continue to go through it again. But as you are logged in as admin, then over under administration, going to security, clicking more, there's a menu item that says reset admin password. And this password gets reset by your district special programs security administrator. And that person will know the password and be responsible for managing the password. And that password can be shared by that person to, whoever is appropriate in your district, meaning that, there might be situations where more than one person would have that password. And that will become clearer as we talk about the different functionality and parts of what that password and what you can do with that password. So just kind of stay tuned with me. It's a little bit of a narrative journey as we get through that process here. All right. So signed in as an admin with a temporary password that gets reset, your menus will look like this. And it looks much broader than what you saw in my product overview, because now I have access to really kind of all the functionality that hasn't been buttoned down by security, okay? Because it is the Alabama model, there will be areas in the configuration that only the Alabama configurators control. Your product team has control over how are the profiles set up? How are the document templates created? What are the business rules that are a part of that process? So as a security administrator, what we're going to talk about today in this session and the rest of the sessions is, what can a security administrator do? What are the system administrative options that a district would have? All right. So with that said, we're going to start over here under administration configuration. And when we go to the configuration menu item, you will see these different silos. By default, you're going to be on settings, and we're going to talk about these settings. All right. In the configuration settings area, we are over on school year settings. Your school year settings have been pre-configured. So they are pre-configured when we copied it out. You will see here under school year settings, there is an option for current school year, and that is set to 2020-21. So it's set for the current school year. Next to it is a hyperlink that says perform end of year rollover. Your data that is coming over to special programs is, and when I say data, it's specifically student data, is controlled, and even teacher data, class section data is controlled in PowerSchool SIS. So when students move from one grade level to the next, or from one building to the next, which is typically what occurs in year-end rollover. That's what year-end rollover does in a student information system. We don't need to change the data in special programs. We're just receiving the data from SIS. So when year-end rollover is performed in special programs, what it's really doing is it's just changing the school year. And so when we looked at the document page for the students, and we looked at where the documents were stored, I said, when a document is created, it gets stored in document for that school year. So documents 2021, and there was another band, documents 2019. So when we perform year-end rollover, what it does, it creates that new band. It just creates a band that says, oh, okay, now we're going to have another band out here for documents for 2021, 2022. And then, of course, it sets the school year as the next school year. We will run that process. When I say we, your PowerSchool application specialists, when we are working with you in the one-on-one data validation workshops this summer, will move your database into the next school year after the data migration, okay? Because as part of that data migration validation, we need to keep you in that school year. You're going to be running reports. You'll hear about that later. And so as one of the QA pieces on our end, we will review these configuration settings. We will move you into the next school year and make sure that this setup is correct. So with that said, you need to know that this exists. In future years, it is something that you will be doing. We'll walk you through it this year, and we'll do it with you, but there's nothing that you need to do. Beneath that, under marking periods, be aware that also is not used. That is for reference only. There is no correlation between those marking periods and a progress report or any other kind of a monitoring report for progress. So currently not used, nothing that you need to do with that. Data storage years. The data storage years are already defaulted in. The data storage years just control the number of years of history of documents. It is set appropriately for all your migrated history to come in. There's nothing that you need to do there. Now, allowable years for new documents. I do want to talk about that. Allowable years for new documents. You will note that there's a little pencil here, so we'll edit this. It's going to open this up. There's an earliest year, a latest year, and a default year. And this controls the ability to store documents or create documents for a particular school year. When you create a new document template, by default, it's going to create it in whatever year we have set here. And when we run year-end rollover, it bumps these up, okay? So that's why they're all matched to whatever my current school year is. So the default year when I create a document is going to be a document for this year. That totally makes sense. The earliest year is how many years would I be able to, or would I be able to select from a list of years where I might want to create a new document. Now, normally there's not a lot of reasoning why you would need to create a document template for years past. But if you want to be able to upload a document for a previous year, there is some reason you might want to do that. For example, maybe someone transfers into your district from out of state and they have an evaluation, or maybe they have an IEP from last year. Maybe they have, any number of documents from a prior year, and you just want to attach that in their document library. So in that particular case, you might want to open this up so that when the user selects upload file-based document, they can select the year that they want to load it into. Could they upload it and attach it to the current year? Yes, they could, but just be aware that that's kind of what it's controlling, not just creating a new document, but being able to store a document in that school year. The latest year would be, looking into the future, the latest year you could create a document. And in this particular case, it is set to 2021, which means that I would only be able to create a document for this year. This year, that's correct. Needs to stay there. But think fast forward to next year when you're in production and you're monitoring and managing your own configuration settings. If it is your practice to begin the work on next year drafts for documents in January, February, March, April, then you would change the latest year to next year so that users could create that draft in the next year, school year. And of course, it will stay in the next year's school year. It could even be finalized in the next year's school year, but well, you wouldn't finalize it till you have the meeting in the fall, right? Or whenever it's finalized, but you want to create it. If it's actually valid for next year, you might be creating it in next year. So I'm not sure exactly what the business rules are for you, but just be aware of that if you are creating drafts and working on drafts that are for documents that are really for the next school year, this latest year would get set to be the next year. And you could do it at any time. Now, what that means is if you're creating a document, by default, it will default to 2021, and the user has to, in the dropdown, select the next school year. But this is what gives you the option to have that next school year. So in the school year settings, this year, there are no configurations that you need to change. In upcoming school years, there would be the option to change these allowable years based on what you need to do within your district. And of course, the year-end rollover that just moves you into the next year. We'll walk you through that this summer. Great. From school year settings, there's also a tab called time zones. And the time zone setting in the Alabama model has been changed to be Central Time Zone. So while you should not need to change this, I just want you to be aware this is where the time zone setting is. It is optimized, or it is set so that it will, it will change based on daylight saving times if, and you do have daylight savings time in Alabama. So time zone settings. It's the time zone settings that are being used when we looked at either the events, the audit logs, the document areas, all of that is time stamped. Of course, it's time stamped based on your clock setting here. All right, the next area under settings is the message settings. Now, that has to do with this messaging area. Remember, I said that the communication message area was internal to special programs. It's a messaging system that allows users to send messages and to attach live documents to those messages. And because it does contain live documents, and because that is very much confidential to the students within special programs, we don't send that data outside of special programs to an external email system. For a user to read their messages and know that they have an unread message, they have to be signed into special programs, because that's how they would see that they have unread messages in that panel. There is, however, the capability for a user to, if you have the messaging notifications enabled, a user can self-specify an email address external so that when they got an unread message, it would send them a notification that would tell them they had an unread message. So in this particular case, let me turn this off so you can see what this looks like. Here's staff messaging settings turned on. If I want to allow notifications to be turned on, I would click allow notifications. Up here, I have two options. I can either let users enter an email address and decide if they want a notification, or I could force it. And if I force it, I can force it to be sent to the work email that's on the staff profile. Now, there is a work email that comes over from PowerSchool SIS on the staff profile. But that would also mean that you have to have the work email stored in PowerSchool SIS. If you use this option, users cannot opt out of it. Every user, every time they get a message, is going to get a notification. And that notification, if you don't change it, will be this default, okay? So if you are going to use it, I highly encourage you to change the message so that when they get a message, it's very clear to them what that message means. My experience has been for districts where it just says for security purposes, click here. People are very confused. We've all been told not to click on hyperlinks where if we don't know, where they go. So I encourage you to change it. Now, if you leave it at self-specify, it would look like this for a user. Up in the communication area under messages, there is a settings button. And a user, if they're opting in, if they're self-specifying, enter their email address. Say that they want a notification. Now, in the configuration settings, What you can do is, if you're allowing them to self-specify, is you can force an acceptable domain, so that if you have the domain at your district and you want to make sure that they're not sending notices to their Gmail account or their AOL account, for example, you can force it to be, at your specific domain address. So you can turn them off entirely. You can turn them on, allow people to just say, you know what, I don't go over there very much, so I want to know when I get a message. Or you can force it, and then you have messages. People don't get to opt in and out. They're just going to always get a message every time they get a new unread message in special programs. In addition to that unread message here, there are also the same kind of a notification if you have reports that you've subscribed to. Somebody emails you a report, for example, and sends it to your message center, or you have a message where you're having reports refreshed. It is the same kind of thing. It will send you that notification that you have a report. In order to review the report, you need to log in and look at the report. We do have within special programs the ability to allow and set up logins for students and parents. It is not set up, it's not configured for use in Alabama. So you'll notice that there's nothing being set up here. It's important to note that this kind of messaging is only used if you have special programs set up so that parents are logging in to see and be able to edit specific documents. The message center up here, when you send messages, does not send email messages externally, okay? So this messaging isn't to set it up to send an email message with a document to a parent. It's just an option if you are allowing parents or students to have a login to special programs to work on documents. That is not being used in Alabama. So just FYI, know what that is. Storage options. These are just the default options about how often these storage options in communications would be purged. All right, so we talked about the configuration settings. Nothing that you have to do here this year. Be aware of those options for next year. Your configuration messaging setters here, if you turn them on, make sure that you probably change that default message and decide whether or not you want to let them self-specify. All right. We're going to talk about integration. The first of many conversations probably about integration. Integration is what keeps PowerSchool SIS and special programs in sync. Remember, PowerSchool SIS is your source of authority for student, staff, location, class data. It is where, when students are enrolled in PowerSchool SIS, you're keeping all of your information, demographics, enrollment, it's all coming from PowerSchool SIS. But in special programs, it's where you can specifically manage your special populations. So we have to have a strategy to bridge these two together so that they can speak to each other. And we do that through a process that is called integration. When your PowerSchool SIS server is built, and when we build your databases for special programs, we install in PowerSchool SIS something called a plugin. And that plugin contains import layouts for all of these areas of data. okay? And when those import layouts are enabled, what happens is that every time a general ed student enrolls, his record and a subset of his demographic data is integrated into special programs, okay? And of course, that student resides in that general student table. And when the student is imported into the student table because, they're identified as being eligible or evaluated for some sort of a accommodation plan or a gifted plan, or maybe they're receiving some sort of intervention services. At that point in time, the students move and are imported from the general table into the student table. And when you import the student from the general table to the student table, it kicks in something called a student import, which talks to PowerSchool SIS and brings over additional information. It brings over the enrollment information. It brings over all his address information. It brings over the data that you saw in the student demographic profile. In addition, we bring over the student contact information because when you begin the process of working on documents, you want to be able to have that parent information autofill, the addresses, so forth and so on. So we have student contact import layouts that are also refreshing. And what that means is that if somebody changes some key information about a student in PowerSchool SIS, that import integration, that integration process updates the student profile. What if a contact information changes over in PowerSchool SIS? Well, that updates the contacts on the special program side. So that's in the student area here. We also know that we're bringing over all staff. So if you have active staff, every staff that is active has a record over in PowerSchool special programs. If a location changes, let's say a teacher has a change in teacher assignment and they're moving from location A to B, when that change is made over in PowerSchool, we reflect that change through the integration process on the staff record in special programs. We also bring over all of your master schedule class imports. That brings over an active class section for every import that is available. And also, as part of that would include your student and your staff rosters, right? Because I'm in a class, I have a person that teaches it, and these are the students that are available. All right, so what does that look like? All right, so what does that look like? We'll look at it in the software, but it really kind of looks like this. When we install that API plugin, it is installs what we call model import layouts in the integration configuration in special programs. It installs students, staff, classes, locations, alternate locations, district, and some state-related kinds of things. For each of these areas, there are two specific kinds of imports which are installed. One is just labeled the import, such as a staff import, and one is labeled a change notification. The import layout is a import which is scheduled in the off-peak hours, and by that I mean on the hosted servers at night through an algorithmic process. It is reaching out to your servers and it is fully refreshing every data element in that profile based on the information that you have in PowerSchool SIS. So what you saw in that student demographic profile is completely refreshed sometime over the night with whatever you have in PowerSchool SIS. Happens once a night. As I said, those refreshes are happening just through this algorithmic process where based on the server polling, happens one time. Conversely, the change notification continuously runs all day long. There is an integration process that is polling your each of your locations. So it hits one location and and as it connects to the data table on the back end, it's looking for delta changes. And a delta change is a change in data. And so as soon as there is a change, somebody changed a phone number, I'm going to refresh the profile in special programs. So what that means is that during the day, as if information might be changed in any of those fields, it's also updating. So changes during the day, a complete change every night. Now, what does that look like? If you were logged in, my administrative security administrator, I go to configuration and you will see an integration menu item. And it will take you to an area where your import layouts are installed and are enabled. Now, I am in a demo environment. Integration is not running live in this environment. But you can see where all of the import layouts are installed. When they are enabled and turned on, there will be a date that they are running. And that date will be last night. If I were to go look at any district that integration is running, the last date the data was changed, I would see last night's date. If it was a change notification and it just kicked in for a change, I would see it, maybe as of 5 minutes ago. To see what data elements are coming over in any of these import layouts, if you click the zoom button, you will see the configuration of the import layout. And within the import layout, you will see the power queries that are part of that import layout. And of course, the target fields and data sources as it is communicating with PowerSchool SIS. All of this is set up by us. It is the same for all Alabama districts because it's part of the Alabama model. In addition, within each layout, we might set some default values. We have some linking options, maybe where we're saying, only set it at empty if nothing's over in PowerSchool. And of course, over here is an area for translations. And those translations are important because when we are bringing over values from PowerSchool SIS that are coded values, we sometimes need to translate them to our coded values. So these are our crosswalks. And so if you are using PowerSchool SIS standard codes against our standard codes, we know what those translations are. Down the road, however, a year from now, let's say that there is a different value that is introduced for, I think that's ethnics. I'm trying to find, those are all ethnicity values. I'll use a grade table as a good example. Let's say that over in PowerSchool SIS, you've decided to change a grade code, or maybe you're adding a new code to track 3-year-olds or something like that. When you make that change over on PowerSchool SIS, because we integrate grades, that's a situation where, I've got to either add that grade code over in special programs or a translation to an existing code. Now, we monitor your integration and make sure it is running smoothly throughout deployment, right? But obviously, when you go into production, we want you to know about integration, especially because we're bringing in data from PowerSchool SIS, and your data that's in PowerSchool SIS and maybe any data issues in PowerSchool SIS could in fact cause sometimes what we call row errors. And that is where a row of data is coming over, and because there's maybe no corresponding keyword over on our side, or maybe a field which we think should have some data in it is blank, it will do an import with a row issue. And of course, that is all identified in the import logs. So as part of the system administration responsibilities in a district, we want someone to receive the notifications when these kinds of things occur. Now, of course, if it's a failed import, then that's a situation where you are going to talk to log a ticket with PowerSchool Special Education Support. If it is a import with row issues or a row rejection that's caused by data over in PowerSchool SIS, we want you to know how to troubleshoot it. So today is an overview, but we will be scheduling as one of our first sessions, kind of in the March, April timeframe, we will be scheduling integration deep dives. And those are going to be sessions where we're going to require that a system, the person who is the primary system administrator for your special programs area, your PowerSchool admin person as well, come to attend those integration deep dives. We'll record them, but we want to make sure that a contact is set up to receive the notifications in each district. And we want to give you the tools and techniques and information that you need to be able to troubleshoot integration. So that was the big picture of integration. More to come, integration deep dives, integration troubleshooting as we move forward. So, but wanted to really give you kind of the big picture of how is this information moving back and forth, and where is it located? So integration over here under administration. The only time you can see these integration logs is if you are logged in with this account, which is the admin account. Can you modify these? Can you change these? No. They are model imports, but what we really want to do is just teach you the troubleshooting techniques, because when there are integration issues, I would say that 95% of integration issues are resolved by fixing the data over in PowerSchool SIS, or making either a translation adjustment or a keyword adjustment. So all things that you'll learn how to do. All right, the world of integration. So stay tuned. Integration deep dive. You're going to learn about import, student import reports, import logs, troubleshooting. Okay. This last area that we're going to talk about is going to introduce us to the concept of profiles. There is one particular profile that is important. I don't know if it's more important than others, but it is your profile because it controls your district name and your district name that it is connected to, so that it prints on the top of your forms. As I said, you all have the same default configuration, which means that within your global profile, which contains your district name, you do need to navigate to your district name and make sure that it is correct. Your global profile contains your district name, the address, telephone number. We access it by going to configuration, clicking on profile types, clicking on globals, and of course, it takes us to our global profile. Our global profile consists of a main global profile. And as I said, it contains your district information and your calendar setups. When you click edit, you would type in your district name, or it's connected to a lookup feature. It either will auto-populate, find your name, or click lookup. It will select alphabetically, give you an alphabetical directory, and then select your district and pop it in here. It'll automatically pop in. You're going to have to manually type in the address and zip, enter your phone number, and if you have a website, of course, enter that website. If you have a logo that you want to print on the top of your document templates or be included, you could choose a file and upload it here. When we look at document templates here after our break, you'll be able to see on some of those document templates how it's really using this global profile information. It references this information on some of your profiles. It pulls it in on some of your document templates. It's probably using it on some of your state reporting reports as well. So it's important that you do that. Under the calendar options, the calendar is going to be set for the first day and last day of school this year. We're not going to reset those calendar dates for next year until after the migration validation. We want to keep them in that school year for purposes of validating against reports. We'll talk about that later this afternoon. So although you can come in here at any time and set your school district up, we obviously will be walking through and checking all of this information with you during the validation workshop as well, because it's very important that this is all set correctly for back to school. Okay. So first day, last day, federal child count date, those are the only things that are used. And of course, this data gets updated on a yearly basis as you go back to school each year. All right. Global profiles, district information, logo, calendar options. Nothing that you have to do right now. If you once you get the appropriate people have an admin account, and that information is provided to you, you can certainly go in and update this district information. We'll also verify it and QA it when we meet with you this summer. All right, one last area I want to talk about before we take a break and move on to the next session is the administrative utility section. Within administration, there is a feature that's called utilities, and those utilities allow you to mass update things, mass do things in batches. So they're batch utilities. And just like anything that you do in batch, you probably want to be careful about who has access to them. In fact, there are some utilities that are only accessible if you are logged in using that admin account. Here we go. So administration, configuration, utilities. The utilities work in conjunction with you being able to access data that's stored essentially in the database tables. And of course, if it's stored in the database tables, the data containers or the pages that you're looking at would be considered profiles. So utilities, not much in the way of things that contain documents, but really about data. And of course, by default, when I come over to utilities, my focus defaults to students. But as I drop down, notice that I can see students, but beneath that, I see all of the child profiles that belong to sort of the parent student profiles, okay? So you'll see this when we come back. We're going to do a deep dive into profiles, but here's the student profile. Here's all the related supplemental or child profiles. In addition to the students, you could also run utilities against any of these profiles that actually contain data. In the utility area, you will see data utilities. There are some utilities which can be provided to a user just as a privilege, such as mass updating a field or mass deactivating students. And then there are some utilities which are only available to the security administrator admin account, such as deleting a profile, merging a student profile, creating documents in bulk, restoring a student profile from a document database, that sort of thing. So there's a set of them that are really administrative related utilities. Now, of course, I talked about replace student fields. That, as you can imagine, is the ability to search for and replace data, mass update a field of data in any one of those profiles. And that probably does have some usage, in as much as this is a situation where maybe I want to search for and mass update a case manager in a particular location, maybe for all my first graders. Okay. So that's an example of what I might use a utility like that for. In addition, there is another utility that maybe a support person might need to have out on a site. And this is a utility that would allow you to, for example, select all your 12th graders who have graduated and deactivate their profile. And the active deactivation essentially is just making it inactive. It is still accessible as a profile with all of the documents that are attached to it, but it takes it out of your active student table. So it's still there, it's just in a deactivated status. There are, as I said, the ability to delete profiles, merge profiles. If somehow you were to end up with a duplicate student ID, we never want duplicate student IDs, but in the case of that happens, we have the capability to take two profiles, merge all the documents into one so you don't lose any data, and of course, delete the one that's the duplicate. There are also utilities that allow you to automate the process of sending live documents to other Alabama districts when students transfer out of your district in state. Or alternatively, to take an entire set of documents and zip them into PDFs and be able to have a confidential, secure method of providing them to another district, maybe who is outside of Alabama. We're not going to do a deep dive into utilities today. That'll be a working session that we will be offering in the upcoming next couple of months. So that's where the utilities live. All right, so we have covered all of the areas of configuration. We will be letting you know in the, I think they're working on it right now, the process that they are going to be sending out the temporary admin passwords. As I said, they are also refreshing security. Those security scripts are also running. So we want to make sure that we hold up a little bit on providing those admin account passwords until that security is totally refreshed. So give us a little time. I should have an update on that either by the time we come back after lunch or by the end of the day. And I'll give you some precise information about what I know about that. All right, so it's time for break. When we come back, we are going to talk about profiles, document templates, and keyword tables. And As I said, it's those profiles and document templates and keyword tables that really make special programs. It makes it all about Alabama, because that is the area where um, every state is a little different. And so your profiles, document templates, and keyword tables really are the area where it is very specifically set up and defined for Alabama. So it is a 1:45. And so when we come back on the hour, we'll do this session, and then we'll break for lunch. We usually have a little bit, about an hour and 15 minutes for lunch. So take a break, and we will see you all in about 15 minutes.